Some people walk into a room and immediately start scanning it, not for danger, not for attention, for emotions. They notice the quiet tension between two people who just stopped talking. They notice the forced smile from someone who says they're fine. They notice the subtle shift in someone's tone that everyone else ignores, and before they even sit down, they're already adjusting themselves, choosing their words carefully, softening their tone, trying not to upset anyone. Because when you care too much about what everyone feels, you begin carrying emotions that were never yours to hold. Imagine this. You're in a group conversation. Someone makes a small joke. Most people laugh, but you notice something. One person doesn't laugh. Their smile fades for a second. Their eyes shift away. Something about their reaction feels off. No one else seems to notice, but you do. And suddenly the conversation in your head changes. Was that joke too harsh? Did someone get hurt? Should I say something to fix the mood? Should I change the subject? Should I make another joke to lighten things? While everyone else continues talking, your mind is already working, trying to rebalance the emotional atmosphere of the room. People who care deeply about how others feel often develop a quiet habit. They become emotional translators. They read between the lines. They detect subtle signals, a pause, a sigh, a change in someone's voice, and they respond. They adjust themselves so others can feel comfortable. They soften disagreements. They ease awkward silences. They try to keep everyone emotionally safe. And most of the time, no one even realizes it's happening. Pause for a moment. Think about the last time you changed your behavior just to protect someone else's feelings. Maybe you held back an opinion. Maybe you stayed quiet during an argument. Maybe you apologized for something that wasn't really your fault. Why did you do it? For many people, the answer is simple. Because you didn't want anyone to feel hurt. Because you didn't want to create tension. Because you didn't want someone to feel uncomfortable. Caring about others is a beautiful trait. It's the foundation of empathy. It allows people to connect deeply. It makes friendships stronger. It makes conversations more thoughtful. But there's a hidden edge to caring too much about everyone else's emotions because eventually you begin managing feelings that were never yours to manage. Imagine walking into every interaction with an invisible responsibility. You feel responsible if someone becomes upset, responsible if someone feels excluded, responsible if a conversation becomes awkward, responsible if someone misinterprets your words. So you start adjusting constantly. You filter your thoughts. You soften your honesty. You reshape your personality depending on the room you're in, not because you're fake, but because you're trying to protect everyone else. And at first, it doesn't feel exhausting. It feels natural. You tell yourself you're just being considerate, just being kind, just being thoughtful. But over time, something subtle begins to happen. You stop asking what you feel and start asking what everyone else feels first. Someone enters the room in a bad mood. You immediately try to make things lighter. Someone seems quiet. You try to cheer them up. Someone seems uncomfortable. You adjust your behavior to avoid making things worse. But here's the question few people ask. Who takes care of your emotional comfort? People who care deeply about everyone's feelings often become emotional shock absorbers. They soften the tension in conversations. They prevent arguments. They absorb negativity. They calm others down. But shock absorbers don't remove the impact. They just take it. Think about how many conversations you replay in your mind, not because of what you said, but because of how someone else reacted. Did I upset them? Did they misunderstand me? Did that comment make them uncomfortable? Did my tone sound harsh? Your mind becomes a constant emotional review system. And sometimes the smallest moments feel like they carry the most weight. Here's something interesting about people who care too much about others' emotions. They often grew up in environments where emotional awareness mattered. Maybe tension in the home meant something bad might happen. Maybe someone's mood determined the atmosphere of the entire day. So they learned something early. Pay attention. Watch people closely. Notice emotional shifts quickly because understanding how others feel helps you stay safe. And that awareness becomes a lifelong habit. But when emotional awareness turns into emotional responsibility, the weight becomes too heavy because you begin believing something that isn't entirely true. You begin believing you are responsible for how everyone around you feels. But that's impossible. No human being can control the emotions of an entire room. People will misunderstand you. People will have bad days. People will sometimes feel uncomfortable, and none of those things mean you did something wrong. Pause again for a moment. Think about how much of your energy goes into managing other people's emotions. Now imagine what it would feel like if you didn't have to carry that responsibility every time you walked into a room. There's a quiet shift that happens when people realize something important. Empathy does not mean emotional responsibility. You can care about someone's feelings without carrying them. You can listen without fixing everything. You can disagree without being cruel. You can be honest without hurting someone. And most importantly, you are allowed to exist in a conversation without constantly managing everyone else's emotional comfort. People who care deeply about others often fear something. They fear being seen as selfish, cold, insensitive. But the truth is the opposite. Healthy empathy doesn't disappear when you stop carrying everyone's emotions. It simply becomes balanced. Instead of absorbing every feeling in the room, you begin observing them. Instead of fixing every uncomfortable moment, you allow space for others to manage their own reactions. Instead of reshaping yourself for every personality, you remain honest about who you are. And something surprising happens when you stop managing every emotional detail. Your relationships often become healthier because people are no longer interacting with the version of you that constantly adapts. They're interacting with the real you. Some people may feel uncomfortable at first, not because you've become less kind, but because you're no longer absorbing the emotional responsibility they once placed on you. But the right people will understand something important. Kindness doesn't mean disappearing. Empathy doesn't mean exhaustion. And caring about others should never require abandoning yourself. So if you are someone who constantly notices how everyone else feels, remember this: your awareness is a strength. Your empathy is rare. The world needs people who care deeply about others. But caring about others should never mean losing yourself in the process. Because the moment you stop carrying emotions that were never yours is is the moment your empathy becomes something powerful instead of something heavy. And that's when caring about others finally stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like balance.